I've been doing a lot of research on the failures of environmental law and why it's important to try to move towards natural rights. Over the last 40 years, environmental law in general and the EU environmental law has been developing through two main phases, which correspond to two trends which may seem as opposed trends. The regulatory trend on the one side and the deregulatory trend on the other side. If you look at the regulatory trend, you might say that the problem with that it has been characterized by an attempt to protect the environment through adoption of legislation which is mostly aimed at managing what they are called negative environmental externalities. The problem with that, there are major criticalities, that you have an emergency response approach, which is still the reference approach of most of European legislation. You have a lack of medium-long-term vision. You have very often a short-term vision. And most of all, you have a support of the mainstream economic model, which is based on the infinite growth paradigm, which is impossible on a finite planet. If you look at the regulatory trends, this has been characterized by the need, by the tendency in recent years to streamline, simplify, and reduce environmental law. But the problem with that approach is that it doesn't change and it doesn't question the externalities managing approach that I've been describing earlier. So there are still major criticalities with this trend that very often it brings the risk that you have a decrease in the level of environmental protection, and you have a continued support of the mainstream economic model. So along the lines of what was said earlier, if you look at the studies of the European Environment Agency, even with this new trend, you are not on the right track. So what is the proposed way out, in my opinion? Trying to put the proposal of rights of nature on a broader perspective about the law and how the law needs to be changed. I think that the reference framework that we should have in mind into which the approval of this directive proposal should be framed can be based on three elements. The first one is the enforcement of the integration principle. The second one is the need of a change of paradigm. And the third one is the need to reassess EU environmental law. As you all know, the integration principle is one of the main principles that are written in the treaty. It is relevant for environmental protection, and says that environmental protection requirements should be integrated into the definition and implementation of all other policies. I think in Europe, in European Union law, we have a serious problem with the use of this principle. The shift from an externalities managing approach to a nature rights ecosystem protection approach should be grounded on a change of paradigm. The problem is not how you call that. The problem is that we understand that we need a change, we need a strong transition, we need to go into a paradigm where ecosystem resilience is in the first place, and we work towards patterns of human development in harmony with nature. What you need is a reassessment and revision of the law, which means that you don't need to change all the law. You need some few new pieces. One of these, I think, is this proposal of directive of rights of nature. Giving rights of nature would change the perspective also in the way we implement a lot of the existing European legislation. And along with this, you will need a reinterpretation of the existing legislation in the furtherance of the new paradigm.